Hi. There's nothing that I can do that will match that performance before me. So I'm going to talk to you about industrial design and my journey in industrial design. It's been a tough journey. I think it's an area that's not very well known in India and commonly misunderstood. And I'm going to walk you through a journey of how I kind of landed up in industrial design, and something that I feel is a sweet spot of mine. But I had to explore it. It's not something that I figured at the beginning of my entire journey in this career. I come from an army background. My dad was in the army, and we actually spent a lot of time in small towns all over India, and was exposed to a lot of nature. And I think a lot of these things, I believe, that you do as a child really shape you as an adult. And for me, I started off painting. I mean, I was a student that enjoyed science a lot, physics a lot, but I used to paint a lot. I couldn't figure out whether I'd be an artist or a doctor, or, I ended up looking at studying nature. And I used to use my paintings as a method to study nature. I used to study anatomy, I'd study human bodies, animal forms. And at that point, there was nothing about design that was known. And I just continued doing that, and I was enamored by physics and the basic things of refraction, reflection. This is something I did when I was 9, and I realized that I didn't want to be an artist, but it's something that really touched me. And I started building models. I enjoyed working with my hands, and I started figuring out there's something that's missing. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I mean, I had architecture as an option, and I really didn't want to do architecture. It was something more spatial. I used to build a whole lot of models. Anyone wanted something, I'd build it for them. And started realizing that I could use my skill to express ideas, and that's how I kind of started moving to design. And somewhere down the line, my father actually told me about NID, and why don't you just take part and see if you get through. And I wasn't sure, and I managed to get through. And that's when my journey in design started, and I've started using that foundation that I built up, that skill, not as something to impress anybody, but just to articulate and communicate ideas. And that kind of landed me up designing products. And designing products for India is something that's been a dream for me, and it's also a dream for me to put India on the world map for design. It's really not known for design, and that's a long journey, but hopefully at some point we'll be known for that. So I kind of started creating a whole lot of products. This is a glass that has no base, so when you lift it up, it has no, it can't stand on its own. So it kind of amalgamated a lot of what I learned, which is mechanics, physics, the whole art form of expressing. And I started creating objects. And I found my journey veering towards Titan. I worked with Titan for about 13 years. I built up their design studio. We didn't have a design process at all, and I started just doing deconstruction of watches that existed. So I'd make these drawings early on in my early 20s, and then kind of study what the great designers did with watches. And I started understanding the fact that there's so many disciplines in design that get almost seamlessly meshed together. I found typography as a great way of designing watches, and that's the first method that I kind of expressed to Titan. And we started formulating a way of creating products. And that's when my entire journey of what I did in school, which is painting, I brought that back as a method to kind of showcase ideas to the company. And started building this up to, I started with watches. I mean, I learned a lot about understanding everybody else's categories, which is when you're a designer, you have to work with a whole range of professionals, and most of them much older than you, and with a lot more depth of experience in their category. So you have to be able to have at least an arm's reach knowledge of the expertise that you work with. So I worked on tractors when I was at college, and then I finally started designing complete products. And I realized that the whole thought of building ideas is that it just doesn't all stem from you. It's all about how you can connect with consumers. It's not an art expression for me, but it's more, how do I use an idea that possibly germinates in my mind, but affects a million people. And that was the vision that I wanted to kind of create with the work that I'm doing. So this is a bicycle designed for the masses. It's designed like a assembly kit of parts that you can put together yourself. My first job as a product designer really was graphic design, but I didn't say no to it. So whole intent of design is to be able to straddle various categories, not worry about your expertise, but kind of transfer the sensibilities into whatever you do. So I was given this large task of building the brand for jewelry, and now it's a well-known brand, of course. But at that point, I was just about 22 when I built this, and we had no computers. I went back to my skill of painting. I actually created this typography, just painting these forms and then keeping them at about 50 feet away and kind of looking at how this logo would come together. And today, they haven't changed this at all. I expanded it to... So I started getting a little hungry about product design, and I wanted to really see what footprint I could leave back in this. And I started very early on expressing my own line of products. So I'd look at melding technology, material processes, and interesting design innovations to come up with products. I think the landmark change for me at Titan was when I was part of a team that built Edge. And it took us about 4 years to create this product. And I was the youngest one there, but what it taught me was collaboration is probably the future for design. You have to be able to dip into everybody's expertise to create a product that is absolutely seamless. And it's something that you can credit to a large team. And Edge is something like that. I mean, it's something that the country at least created that's been a landmark for the watch industry. So I built a whole lot in the watch space and kind of expressed a lot. And I think that whole journey led me to infusing the fact that the studio that I run now should run on collaboration. It's all about collaboration. And I started looking at this whole idea of working with much larger organizations. So we won the bid to create the baton for the Commonwealth Games. And we were the smallest bidder in that. So I had to actually literally put in larger teams to kind of give me weight. So when we won this, we actually started building up the whole idea of, it's not just about the end product, it's about the entire journey that you create. So we collaborated with the army. We actually picked up soil from every state in India and applied that with an innovative process onto the baton. We used GPS technology, so that's how we kind of put it together. So we started, it was explorative. We didn't have a solution at the beginning of the project, but we started looking at how we can start establishing larger processes of design. This is one interesting bit. India is always seen from a perspective of the past, and we wanted to showcase the fact that India is, really looking ahead in the future, and we wanted technology to be infused seamlessly. So we looked at an interesting idea of GPS being connected to the flag colors. So that every time this baton moved from one country to another, it would actually change the flag colors on its own. So it customized itself to each country. And it kind of showcased the fact that India is not shouting out technology, but they have a solid foundation that exists across it. So we created these products which really was a landmark change for me. And I kind of started instilling that process in everything that I did. Just to quickly walk you through a little bit of what design is all about. I mean, for me, when we create products, we actually have to, like I said, it's about consumers. You understand the insights of a consumer, understand habits, and it's not like a huge science, but you have to use common sense, your depth of knowledge, and kind of build up thoughts. It starts then, and you start building up. Engineering is a huge part of it. I think we try and push engineers to be seamless design engineers, so they understand this design sensibilities, and we get designers to do the same the other way around. So we use prototypes in a big way, and I think prototypes is something that really defines and clarifies ideas, because everything's on a piece of paper before that. And we build our own prototypes and we test ideas, and this is the point where you actually say you throw all that effort out or you actually take it ahead. A little bit of a bird's eye view of that whole process. I mean, like I said, I think it's an amalgamation of an art form, of engineering, and a great mass production. We did this for Himalaya. We actually manage all of Himalaya's packaging design. So if you look at it, we took a simple insight. Himalaya is about old Ayurvedic formulations that have been contemporized. So we looked at X-ray imagery. And X-ray imagery is very interesting. It has a science bent to it, but it's about herbs. So we kind of built that as the entire platform for what the brand sits on. It's important in design to kind of almost redefine boundaries. You have to take a commonplace object and be able to give it something new. That's how the intent is not to make it new, but also to improve convenience. This is an interesting faucet. You just swing it around and it kind of moves cold to warm water. And it has the whole semiotics of it being shut and open, unlike typical classical faucets. This is a speaker that uses bulb, power from any bulb socket and runs it. So you can wirelessly configure speakers anywhere so this is a speaker come light. Simple things. I mean, this is a very old product. It's a product that hasn't changed for decades, and we actually took about 4 years to convince the company to change to a new product. We did very small innovations, but I mean, at the end of it, it's a small engagement with the consumer. We did a small asymmetric keyhole, which is traditionally, it doesn't exist. And the whole insight there was, it should be able to be a lock that you don't have to use any, it has to be something you just place in and open the lock without fumbling for that ferrule that you see in the keyhole. And this completely changed the platform for the lock. And it also additionally benefited from the fact that it was difficult to copy. So you had to make new masters for guys who make extra keys. Simple things like the thali. I mean, the thalis exist for years, and it's something that we believe also can be redefined. So can we take fine dining and thalis, the whole experience of eating, and can we recreate something in bone china? So we've actually built that as an interesting proposition for a company. We now are approached by companies to, not with a problem, but they give us a broad perspective, a broad opportunity, and we kind of work through the solutions. So whether it's lighting, whether it's jewelry, it's something that is not defined to us, and we start exploring it. We've reached a stage where we now started talking about design language. You've seen that in the Apple phones. And every company that has a large portfolio wants a product that you can see from a distance and say that's the brand it is. And we are now attempting to do that. It's largely about creating design codes within products. So this is how you can see what one product expands to a whole portfolio. We've done that for watches. And of course, simple brands like Louis Philippe that is largely in the shirt space, and then how we've kind of taken them into a completely new category. There is getting back to the whole bit of art as such. Design does have a certain amount of expression that you can build, and we've done the Formula One race trophies, and I think these are interesting expressions of how engineering, design, and an art form, which is sculpture, can come together in a very interesting manner. Using very strong Indian foundation for the genesis of the idea. We took the chakra, and the chakra was then inspired into an automotive form, and this became the trophy for the races. We've then expanded that to a whole range of trophies done across large organizations. This is a big part of it. How do you create desire? Desire is an important part in product design. It's not that you're just solving a problem. It's something that you must have. You must be able to seamlessly solve a problem. And I think we've done that. It's there across every product that you see that's successful. Functionality is almost solved without it being very obvious. This is a pure form created as a form of desire, because we looked at the whole soap shape creating that sense of desire. This is a fragrance that does that. If you look at, you can transfer that across anything. Finally, on design specifically, we've started helping a lot of companies build interesting technology ideas and convert them to products that are successful. So design can be an enabler. It actually can look for an opportunity and then convert it to very interesting expression. So this uses basically 3D sculpting, and we built up a bust for Jamshedji Tata when we were given just one picture of him. You can use processes, technology. This is wireless technology. We're building chandeliers now. So it's technology and design kind of seamlessly bring in a very interesting amalgamation to design. It kind of gets you to recreate completely new expressions because of the kind of palette that we have today. So this is just ending on 4 elements. I think the key things to design that I believe we should have is, the first part is context. Context makes a huge difference, a sea of difference. I mean, what, where, and how you design makes an enormous difference. So if you see something abroad and you just plant it here, it just won't work. Context makes a difference. The other is the whole aspect of balance. Today you have to design for the future. You can't be creating waste. It has to be sustainable. Empathy is the most important thing. If you don't understand a person's needs, you cannot design. And that's probably the most significant part of industrial design. Of course, the last is, there is always a leap into the future. You have to be able to leap ahead. And preemptive thinking is a huge part of the whole aspect of design. So believing this is the last slide, my whole vision today is to kind of express the fact that I think design is not percolated large enough in the country. You step out of your homes, you don't see it on streets, on pavements, and that's one space that now we're looking at building up. Can we create really beautiful experiential streets in India? And that's something that's our next dream. Thank you.